So welcome back to class. I'm just going to open the file. Then from our previous class, we stopped at HTML forms, and we talked about tables and form, right? So we looked at different things on table, which are the table head, table row, table data. Then we gave our table a border, right? So we can also give a width attribute. So that will come much more later today because we'll be talking about HTML attribute today. Then also we looked at form and the different attributes that comes with form, such as the action. What other attributes can come? We can give you style attributes. So, but the action is the most important and logical attribute here. And we talked about label and inputs, right? For the labels, we looked at the four attributes. We can also give other attributes. Then we looked at input, and inside of the input we have different data types. We look at the text, the image, the password, the number, the color, the file, date, radio, checkboxes. We also looked at select field, right? So these are the basic ones. As time goes on, if there's any more we need, we are going to be adding it to what we are doing. So today we want to look at attributes, HTML attributes, right? HTML, sorry, HTML attributes. Now, what are attributes? Now, like I said in the previous class, I said attributes, they give special function and meaning or information to our web page, right? And if you remember very well in that last class, I said some attributes are kind of compulsory or mandatory. That's to say, we can't do without using those attributes. An example of such attribute is when we look at the source attribute of an image, right? So let me go back to this image. These images we had on our web page. Now, when you look at these images without the source attribute, it's almost as if the img tag is useless. Is that not so? So if I should remove this source attribute now, you notice that I won't get that particular image. You can see that image is out of my page. If I should remove this source attribute now, see, you can see it's also out of my page. So you can see how important the source attribute is. Let me bring them back, right? So that's for that. Then also, if you look at the auth attribute, if I remove it, or if I remove the auth attribute, you notice that my image is still coming. You get, the auth attribute only has importance if the source attribute is not provided. So you can see that the auth attribute is kind of optional. Then let's look at the, what's it called, the links or anchor tag. Without this href attribute, it's almost like the anchor tag is useless, right? Because if you just write an ordinary anchor tag without href, it's just as though it's a paragraph, just an ordinary text. So the href attribute is what makes my anchor tag very functional or very important. So let's put it that way. Then also we are going to explore other attributes. So we've already been talking about attributes. Look at the four attributes, the name attribute. I explain what the name attribute is doing, right? I said the name attribute is used to grab this value so that I can submit it onto a database, right? Maybe when I'm working with a language like PHP, Python, JavaScript as well. But then if I'm working with JavaScript, I can also use ID attribute to grab this value, or class attribute. You can select element by ID, you can select element by class, and so on and so forth. So that's just for that. That's for that. Then now let's just talk about a few other attributes. Now, if you look at this style, it's also an attribute, right? Now, for HTML attribute, there's no need of writing much stuff. I will say attribute gives special meaning or information to the HTML element, right? And now that's what you should know about attribute. Then also, attributes are written inside the opening tag. So you can't find attributes in the closing tag. It's always written in the opening tag. So please take note of that. right? So take note of that. So attributes are always written in the opening tag. So examples of attributes, I'll just list them. There's no need of demonstrating them. Examples of let me come back again. Examples of HTML attributes are, let me say, source for image. So when I say source, you know what I mean. Source, href, right? Action for forms. What's it called? Alt for image. Let me just put it here. Alt for images, right? They also have the ID, the class, the width, the height, right? So these are all attributes. So anything that's written inside of the opening tag is an attribute. So the value, the type, the name, the what's it called again? The for. So just take notes. Value, the type, name, for, etc. So that's for that. These are all examples of attributes. So we've already seen them on the previous class. Now let's talk about ID and classes, because that will lead us to our CSS. So that will propel us into CSS class. Now, a class and an ID, what are they used for? Now, classes and IDs are used to style our web page or to target our HTML elements so that we can style them separately or select them from our JavaScript. That's what they are used for. You know, like I said the other day, IDs and classes, they are kind of optional. You get? But where do we find application of IDs and classes? Now, let's take for instance, I'm going to create another HTML file. Let me just see blog.html. Now inside of this HTML file, I'm going to bring out my boilerplate. We saw this the other day, right? Then also I'm going to open this with live server, right? So this blog.html is an empty page now. Now if I come here and I do something like each one, say blog post, and I save, right? So I can now come here and do something like a div. I'll say lorem 100. Let me just use 100 for instance, right? This is looking like this is too much. Okay, let me Ctrl Z. Let me say lorem 50. Sorry, lorem 50. Let me see. Now the reason why it seems as though the 100 is so much is because, you know, this is half of the page, so it's kind of compressing, right? So I'm going to duplicate this 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. So let me say I have 10 of this, right? This is what I'm going to get. Is that also? Now I want to apply style attributes, right? Now let's say for instance, if you see all of these guys, right? I have blog posts, I have 10 divs inside of this. Now let me be sure you guys are following. Okay, Pascal has left the meeting. Let's just continue. Let's continue. Now like I'm saying, I have 10 divs and I want to style them. So how do I style them? Now there's what we call inline styling. I can come here and say style, right? I will say color. I want the color to be red. So if I save this, sorry, color to be red. If I save this is what I'm having. The color is now red, but now I don't want to even use color. Let me use something like background color. If I say the background color should be red and I save, you see what I'm getting, right? Now if I also want this other one to be background color of red, it's just to copy it, right? Or come back here, don't need for copy, write the same style and say background color should be red, right? Is that also? So if I want this for all of my divs, I will do that from the starting to the ending. Is that not so? Now this is what we call inline CSS. Now the style attribute is a special kind of attribute that takes property column value. You get? So now this thing is seen as an object whereby I have property and value. So when I say style, I will say property then column value. So this is not the only property. I can add other properties like text color, and I will say this should be white, right? Sorry, background color red. This is not comma, I'm supposed to use a semicolon. And I'll say color should be white. Then if I save, can you see what I'm getting? Getting background color of this. So you can see I can add more attribute to this. I can say, okay, I want the line height, right? This is also a property. I want it to be 2 rems. If I save, this is what I'm getting. Now these are also other properties. You have a question?
Sorry, I can't see your screen.
You can't see my screen. Okay, let me share again. Seems like it has unshare. Stop presenting. Then present again. Yeah, can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, good. Now, if you look
Yes,
at what I'm
yes.
explaining, I said this one might have a color of a background color of red, color of white, which is text color, then a line height of 2 red. You can see that I'm already applying all of these classes. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that doing this like this is not efficient. You get? Instead, it is better to come here, remove all of this style, right? Remove this. I don't need this. I'm not supposed to do inline css. Inline css, you only do that when you just want to apply a single style. You get? So if it's just to come here and do something like style, then I will say I want the background color, right? I want the background color. Sorry, I want the div. I want to select the div. Then I will say I want the background color to be red. So that's what I will just do. Simple. Now you can see that it's affecting everything. Also, I want the color to be white, right? Now if I do this, you can see that it's affecting everything. I can also add other styles such as padding. I'll say I want the padding to be 20 pixels, right? Now this is it. Yeah, I can also add another style called margin. I can say I want the margin bottom to be 10 pixels. When I save, this is what I'm getting. Now you can see that I'm now creating these styles. But now what did I just do? I just left style attributes, and now I'm using what we call internal css. You get? Now the process whereby I use style attribute at first, that was what we call inline css. You get? So inline css is when I will come here and do something like this: style equal to style equal to property, which might be background color, text color, or anything. Then I will say column the value, which should be red, green, or anything. You get? But now what I'm doing now is that I'm using internal css to do this. Now where does that class and id, where do they come in handy, or where do we use them? Now if for instance I want a situation whereby I want the first color to be red, second one to be blue, third red, blue, something like that, all I need to do is just to come here and give an id to my first one. Okay, let me make the first blue. I will say let me just call this guy box, right? I'll copy this id, I'll paste it on all. Okay, no, let me know his id because id is supposed to be unique. So let me use class, right? So I'll copy this class. I'll come to the third one, give it the class of this. Sorry, Ctrl Z. Give it the class of this. Come to this one, give it a class of that. Come to this one, give it a class of this. Then come to this one, give it a class of this. I'm sorry, class of this, right? Then what again? Okay, let me just give this last one. Now if I save this, it's just to go back to my box. How do I target the class? Now if you want to target class in css, you use the dot, right? You say dot the name of the class. The name of the class is box, so I will say dot bux. I will say I want the background color to be blue. Let me use blue. Now if I save, can you see what I'm getting? I'm not getting blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, right? What is on this last one? This last one seems empty. Oh, don't forget. What's on this last one? Okay, never mind. Let's leave that last one. Never mind. So you can see what I'm getting. I'm getting blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red.
Yes,
You said?
I'm following. I can see.
Okay. Now, what did you just notice? You notice that I was able to do this style by using what? Class, such that all of the styles that was on this first one will still apply to what I have next, but it's just that only this color property is now being changed. You get? So that was done with the help of class. You can see that the class attribute can be used for styling, right? Now also I can give ID. You see all of these classes, I can change them to ID. Now just to come here, right? Duplicate this, change them to ID. But if I change it to ID, all those styles will go out. So I need to come here and I will say hash box. Instead of me to use dot, I will say hash. So in fact, let me just do something. I will say comment. Say comment uses dot, right? Then I will say, sorry, I will say classes uses dot, not comment. So I will come here now. I will say IDs uses hash, right? So now this same thing I did, I will comment it, then I will try to do it with an ID. I will say hash box, right? I will say background color should be blue. You get? So when I do the same, it worked, right? Now the fact that this is working doesn't mean that this is the right thing to do. Are we following? Now the thing is this: there is a rule in CSS. IDs are supposed to be unique. You get? Why I can have multiple classes? Why I can have multiple classes? Now what does this mean? Now this is saying that IDs are supposed to be unique. It means that I'm not supposed to have these IDs like this, the same ID on a web page, plenty of it. No, I'm not supposed to have that. You get? Now the understanding of these IDs are supposed to be unique and class can be much or more. The real understanding is in JavaScript. By the time you start doing element selectors, there's what we call single element selector, multiple element selector, and so on and so forth. Now that's where the real explanation is, but for now just note that it is not right to do this in this manner or in this way, right? So instead of me to use ID, we are going to change it to class. So I'll just duplicate this, right? Then I will change them to class, not ID. So class is what we're supposed to use, right? So we'll use class. If I save, then come back, I'll comment this ID, right? Come back, uncomment this, then save. Is that not so? That's what we're supposed to do. Now an element can have two classes. So I can come here, I can add another class. I will say first, right? Now I can target that first. Remember it's a class. I will say first, right? I can give it a line height. So I can say first, okay, I can say a line height of 3 rems, right? So if I save, this was happening to that first. Now you can see that this thing is using two classes. Now also take note, this thing can also have an ID. I can also add an ID to this. That is to say a single element can have both a class and an ID. Now if I put ID, I can say first again. Let me just name it as first. Now if I want to select that ID is to use hash, I will say hash first, right? I can say the text color, right? Text color should be green. Now if I save, this is what is happening. Let me not use green. Green is not coming out. Let me say pink, right? You see what is happening. Now the text color of that is pink. Let me just go back. Do you guys have any question? Is there any question?
No.
Okay. Now you can see that the color of this is pink, right? Now what just happened? We noticed that I already gave this guy a background color. Sorry, I already gave this guy a color of white, right? But now I'm using an ID. I'm also giving it a color of pink. Now let me tell you something. IDs are stronger than classes and elements itself. You get? Now you see this class, this color of white. If I take this color, and I put this color over here, I want to remove this ID. Remember I said IDs are stronger. Now classes are stronger than the element itself. You get? So though I gave all the element colors of white, but this particular one, this first one, if I want to change the color to something like red, if I save, can you see what is happening? That one now has the color of red. That's to tell you that classes are stronger than elements. You get? But now this thing has the color of red. Then let's see between a class and an ID, which one is stronger. This is what is happening. The color has changed to pink. That's to say the powers, the power of class, sorry, the power of id is greater than that of class, and class is also greater than that of element. You get? So that's why we always say, okay, class can be multiple, but IDs are unique. Not that if we give the same ID to multiple elements, not that it won't work. If we style it with CSS, it's going to work. But that's not the convention, or that's not the way of doing it. That's why there is a right way of doing something. There are also wrong ways, and that is why you also need to be in class. You get? If you don't learn these things, you won't know how to use them. Not like if you use them wrongly, somebody will just go and know that, okay, you use this thing wrongly. But there's what we call best practice or good practice. You might be in a position of an interview also. This thing should not make you lose a job. You get? So that's just why you need to know it, and this is how it's supposed to be done. Then if you look at the hierarchy, that is how it's supposed to be. The power of IDs are stronger than that of class, and classes are stronger than that of div. So you can see that now I'm not using this attribute, class attribute, and this. So even if I come here, if I give this one an ID of first, that ID I applied, they will also work here. If you look, the ID, what I only changed was the color. I changed the color to pink. Now look at this one. This one now has the color of what? Pink. This is my second box, rather. Second box now have the color of pink, right? That pink color is not coming out in the red background. You get? If I change this color to green, you see that it's going to come out. You get? But then, like I said, is this thing coming out? First. ID first. FIRS. Okay. Okay, sorry, the first and second. So don't mind me, I was looking at the third. You can see this one is now green, then this one is green. I have a bad choice of color tonight. I don't know why. But then just get what I'm trying to explain. You get? So like I said, IDs are stronger than that, and those are stronger than the other. But you can see that we're stylishly going into CSS styling, right? So how do we do CSS styling? Now there are 3 ways to do CSS styling. So let me just come back. I'll see. So we're entering CSS bit by bit. So I'll see 3 ways. 3 ways of adding CSS, right? Now the 3 ways are: number 1, inline styling. Number 2, we have internal styling. Then number 3, we have external styling. Right? So these are the 3 ways of adding CSS. Now, like I said, we have inline, internal, and external. Now, what is inline styling? Inline styling, like I said before, is when we do the style attribute. So if I come here, right, I can do something like style. Right, I can see the color should go back to white. Right? Now, what do you just notice? You notice that inline styling is stronger than ID and classes and element itself. So please take note of that too. So inline styling is very powerful. Then now, after inline styling, like I said, inline styling is when we do style equal to property colon value. If I need more property, just to come here and use columns to separate them, I can reduce the line height to I can say the line height should be reduced to 1 rems, right? If I save this, you notice that the line height has been reduced, right? So you can see inline styling is stronger, very, very stronger when you compare it with internal styling. Again, then in turn, internal styling is stronger than external. Now, internal styling and external styling, both of them are almost the same. Now, what's the difference? You see all of these styles, I'm going to copy them. Then I'll use it to demonstrate external styling. So I will comment this over here, comment this guy over here, and I'm going to comment these ones over here as well. So if I save, you notice that I will lose my styles, right? Now, if I want to do external styling now, is to come back here and create an external CSS file called style.css or anything.css. Then paste the styles here, right? Now, how do I connect this CSS to my HTML? How do I connect the both of them? It's very simple. You just to come here, sorry, my blog.html, that is where it is. You just to come to the head, and remember we talked about linking before. Now, don't let this confuse you. If you want to do link, That's to say linking between pages. When I click on one page, it should take me to another. That's when you use the anchor tag. You get? And if you notice, I explained the anchor tag over here. I did something like anchor, and those are the things that takes the href attribute. So these are those anchor tag. You get? So these are links. But now if you want to do css, you also use link tag. You use a link tag, and that is not an anchor tag. So please take note, don't confuse them for each other. If I come here now, because you might see this in a question, maybe an objective question, which of this is used to link between which of them is used to create a link? So they might put link tag for you, anchor tag, and the rest. So don't be confused. When you see link tag itself, link tag is used to bring css. Now you notice that when I press enter, it gave me style.css, right? Then it gave this rel attribute talking about that. Okay, fine, the file that I'm bringing is a style sheet. Then the href specifies where the file is coming from, or is pointing to the file. So I already saved this, and this is live server. It's supposed to have applied by now. You get? If you look now, the styles are now applied. Why? Because I already saved that, and it was using live server. So if I should remove this line of code and I save, you see what is happening. So if I put it again, so if you see what I'm getting, so this is what we call the external styling. External styling is done by creating a link tag, right? And this link tag is what we use to link css. So when I say href, I'll put the word the style.css. If you look at this could be optional. I can decide to remove this, then save. You can okay, sorry, it's not optional. Okay, like I said, it's telling that that's a style sheet, but then if I remove this, it's still not going to work. You get? So that one is very, very compulsory too. So for this case, these two tags are compulsory. This is telling me that this is a style sheet, then the href is saying that that is a style.css. So the way you do your internal styling is done by using the style tag, right? So it's almost the same thing, just that in external styling you don't need that style tag because this is already a .css file. And now external styling is way, way better than internal styling. This is because if I'm using an external styling, I can use a single css file to style multiple web pages, and that's what we want. We want a situation whereby we'll keep our code clean by following the dry principle, which states that don't repeat yourself, right? So internal styling is good, but then it's used for just a single file. At least if you compare it to inline is just used for that particular element. So take note, that's why inline is more stronger than internal, and internal is more stronger than external. So it's just like you have a house now, and you invite your friend to your house, and if your dad say get me my favorite shoe, you are supposed to know that you will know your dad's favorite shoe compared to your friend. Or maybe your dad say get me my favorite drink, you are supposed to know your dad's favorite drink compared to your friend. Because why? You are inside the same house with your dad always. Like you are closer to your dad than your friend. So it's the same thing that is happening here. So if you notice, the relationship between the inline and the elements is very strong compared to what the internal and the elements, compared to the external and the elements. So please take note. So internal has more power than what? This internal css has more power when you compare it to the external. If you look now for my external, let me just say this external, both of them are the same. If I should change the padding of this internal css, where is it? The padding of this one from 20 to 100, what sure will happen? Can you see that it's affecting it? Can see that it's affecting it. So that's to tell you that the internal css is stronger than the external css. So please take note of this. I know it's kind of difficult to get at first. So guys, we are going to be looking at css properly. So what I will do, I will create a new folder. I'll say css underscore class, right? And inside of this folder, I'll create index.html, and I'll say style.css, right? Now, we are going to start with css in our next class, but before then, let me just show you something. I can do something like this. I already know what that is doing. Then inside here, I'll say h1. I'll say hello css, right? Let me just capture the type, hello css. Then inside of my style.css, we'll talk about the CSS syntax. Now, what is the CSS syntax? Now, let me just put a comment first and say CSS syntax, right? Now, CSS syntax states that selector, then property, colon value. So this is the CSS syntax. I'm going to bring this guy down, and I'll bring this guy down as well. Let me just write it the normal way. This is how I like writing it because there are lots of property and value. So that is the general CSS syntax. Now, what does this mean? If I go back to my HTML and I decide to link this by saying link, the inside of my href I have style.css, right? Now, these two guys that have been linked together, remember, both of them are on the same directory. Now, if I should right click and open this with live server, you can see what I'm getting. So I'm going to split my screen into 3 equal halves, right? Now, let's go back to our CSS file. Now, what is the selector? There are different kinds of selector, but the basic one, or the most basic one, is the element selector. So let me just give a comment here, element selector, right? So now if I say each one, that's the selector. Then now, what is the property? Property is whatever I'm giving. I can say color, which stands for text color. I can say red, right? So if I see, I can see that I'm getting a red color. So guys, we're going to be ending this class here because from our next class we'll be starting from CSS, right? So I just wanted to show you how this is done. Remember, I said that 3-way. I have the let's go back. I have the inline CSS, which is done by using let's go to the blog.html. Inline CSS, which is done by using style attribute, right? So these are examples of inline CSS, right? You have the internal CSS, which is done by using the style tag inside of the HTML file. Then also I have the external CSS. So we'll continue from here on the next class. Don't forget, I said the best one to use is the external, because with external CSS I can use a single CSS file to style multiple web pages. While for the internal CSS can only be used to style a particular HTML page. Then the inline CSS is just used to style a particular element. So that's why the external CSS is the most recommended way of doing things. So thanks very much, guys. See you in the next class.